approval.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to another Provision interview. I have my wonderful friend, Maria. Maria, I didn't even ask how to pronounce your last name. Where
It's
is this?
Lil it's Lilrose.
Okay.
So I always
Okay,
tell my
Lilirose.
students, it's like Lil Wayne or Lil Bow Wow, it's Lil Rose.
Little Wayne. That's great. Okay,
Yeah,
Maria Lillrose. I'm
yes.
so excited. Maria and I connected through previous community that you taught in,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite things about you, Maria, is that you have such an incredible way of connecting
Mhm.
the spiritual from like multiple different dimensions and lineages into the physical. And
Mhm.
particularly, I think what really drew me to you was having us both having roots in Christianity and in the
Mhm.
church and in the biblical realms, and how you have journeyed through that, and how you were and are able to bring in such an incredible like wisdomous perspective of that into like more present teachings
Mhm.
that prominently exist online of, the feminine and the masculine and those dynamics.
Yeah.
And it has helped me so much ground like my roots and some of these things that may be a little bit newer, and what a lot of people would say is like new agey,
Yeah.
it all kind of blends for me now. And
Yes.
um yeah, it's incredibly useful for the women who are, I think for a lot of women, and I think even especially now that I have more and more friends who get more curious about, um, you know, the blending of all sides of things. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
Maria, you've been so impactful in my life, and it's been so fun journeying with you now and in other ways in our devoted group, and
Yeah.
the prayers that we have done together. Like it's such a gift. And so, um, yeah, it's been on my heart to have you on to talk about things that I have the gift and pleasure of discussing um, in our group. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I'll get into that more, but um, I think my best intro of you is just like an incredibly uh, powerful woman who holds yourself responsible in
Mhm.
ways that I think is quite challenging for many women, because
Mhm.
it brings forth, I don't even know that I can finish that statement.
Mhm. That's okay.
That's just okay. So
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I would love to let you finish with the wonderful ways that you introduce who you are
Yeah.
and what you bring to
Yeah.
the world. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. That was a really,
She's
like, great introduction. This is also Coraline. She will be photo bombing in the
climbing
back.
up the wall.
She's like, "What is this up here? This is
Yeah.
fall decorations." So, she may be in the background. She's just adding a little pizzazz to the
Yeah.
conversation. So yeah, I'm Maria. Courtney and I, we met in a few communities we've been a part of, and then we've dove more deeply into um, connection with the divine through that devoted group, and it's been really
Mhm.
wonderful. Um, I like to introduce myself. I'm just a regular person. Like, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, a bunch of cats. I'm a teacher. I teach for my school district here. I work in adult education, but I'm also what I call a mystic, which just means, like, to me, that means I want to experience the divine for myself. So, and this kind of like, I grew up, like Courtney said, within Christianity, within the church. I went through kind of like a rough divorce that just like um, wrecked me in a lot of ways, but like good ways. And I began to have these like encounters with God, like that just wrecked my theology in like the
Mhm.
best way possible. And so like I went through this period of like deconstruction where all these things got taken apart, all these like false belief systems and like really like wonky views of myself and of life and of God, of like men and women and like all of that, and then got like put back together in a different kind of way. So those experiences have kind of shaped me. And so like while I haven't like I've left religion for sure, I take what's in the text, the Bible or whatever, as like archetypal stories and wisdom that hold these like codes of remembrance for us. And I think this is true regardless of like if you're looking at Christianity or if you're looking at Judaism or if you're looking at any religion, you can find that there's these stories that we pass down because the stories hold deeper meanings for us that help us unpack things and help us awaken to who we really are and what life is about and who God is and all that kind of stuff. So I love to teach on this. I'm a living example of it. Like I'm not perfect by any means. I feel like I've figured out some things, but maybe not everything. I think there's always more to learn. So I love to share on this. I love to teach on this. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to be here and kind of like see what unfolds from here and like have conversations around this and what this might look like for people who are interested in hearing more and whatever unfolds between the two of us also. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah, the openness to see what unfolds. Absolutely. Okay. So my big thing with you, Maria, that is just incredible to witness is the way you behold yourself with, let's say, like so from what you've experienced spiritually in the divine as a daughter of God and how that meets the now physical realms. And I can get into more examples in a minute here, but just kind of as like a baseline, let's say someone brings forth a question of something occurring in their life and their relationship and how you can kind of very quickly go into it almost seems to me like no matter the scenario, what your part has been played in creation of that, of what you've allowed in. And I'm sure I'll share more over time, but what I want to start out with is like, how in the heck did your doors open to experiencing of that? Cause like, it's such a thing online that women get into these feminine and masculine teachings, but I know some of your story, but even if I didn't, I know darn well this has been something going on for you for a long time, like long before we were all talking about it on Facebook.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really easy for us to go into a place of like victimization, like things happen to me. There's people outside of me doing things to me, whether like that's a partner doing things that I don't like or not changing or whatever, or a job or, not getting the money that I want or political people that I don't like or whatever. Like you can apply it to anything. So like that role of like being a victim where things are happening to me, I'm powerless, I don't have anything that I can do, woe is me. Like there's no power there. You've completely like given everything away to everything outside of you, right? And I lived in that place for a long time. Like the marriage that I was in was toxic and abusive, and I was just like, woe is me, I'm a victim, and looking back now with the wisdom that I have now, I see how I like played my own part in I reaped what I sowed. Like the control, the manipulation, the victimization, all of that. Like I was a participant in that, even if it was unconscious. And so going through my divorce process, like that's where like I feel like the divine was like, listen up, we're going to break some things apart. And so I was in this place where I guess we could call it like suffering or pain. I think life uses that a lot because it softens us. We are actually open to something else. We are not rigid or shut down or closed off. It's like, oh God, help me, And so then there's a little tiny crack where like life can get in, where God can speak in, where the divine can like push the door open a little wider to be able to receive the truth. And the truth like may hurt for a minute, but it's always going to set you free. And so this like profound sense of responsibility I did not always have. And it came through this whole process in the divorce that I went through. And when I started the process, I was very much like, I'm a victim. He's an abuser. I was abused, blah, blah, blah. And this is the story. He's a narcissist. He's just, feeding on my energy. I'm an empath. Woe is me. Like, there's definitely like
Yeah.
that dynamic out there in the story, like on Facebook, and
It's
social media.
everywhere.
It's
It's one of the
everywhere.
most I feel like that story has become the most popular and I'm not here to discount
Yeah.
anyone's story and experience, but it's become the most popular narrative that
Yes.
not to get us off topic, but I even wonder if those experiences start becoming a reality, like they are actually happening in the way they are
Hmm.
because it's like one of the most popular narratives.
Yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
so,
Anyways.
and I bought into it. Like, I was absolutely like, that was the story I told about myself. I'm a victim. Woe is me. Somebody save me from everything outside of me. Right.
Yeah.
And so the divorce process started, and there was obviously like a contention about like I was going to live, because I didn't want to stay in Montana. I wanted to go back home to my family, and who was going to have custody of the kids. And so we're basically having a custody battle. So um I can remember, like, we went to the judge for our very first our, what's it called, um temporary custody hearing. And
Mhm.
the judge listened to both sides. And he was in Montana, I was in Missouri, where my family was, because I had taken the kids and left. And the judge was like, I've heard both sides. This isn't really a clear cut case. It's not black and white. And he turned towards me and he said, but what you have done, Maria, is unconscionable. And because what I had done is, there was a restraining order against him. So the kids couldn't talk to him. They were all like young, like under 5. And so I was like, I am justified and not in him
Mhm.
not having contact with the kids. He's not safe. He's a bad person, blah, blah, blah. Right. And
Mhm.
so I felt justified in cutting off contact with him because of that. And the judge told me that doing that was unconscionable, that you haven't
Mhm.
allowed him to have access to his children. They haven't been able to talk to him. That's unconscionable. And then he told us, I'm going to take the weekend to deliberate, and I will have a judgment on Monday.
Mm.
But that word, unconscionable, just like an arrow to the heart, it just like stuck with me all
Mhm.
weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was like, like praying about it. Obviously, like, I'm praying, like, I hope we win, and like justice prevails,
Yeah.
blah, 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 all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I had this friend, Jessica, if you ever watch this, I love you. she sent she sent me this message, and she was like, um, I don't know why you need to watch this video, but you need to go watch this video. And I was like, okay. And so it was this like teaching, this like, Christian sermon on the bitter root. And it was about like how if we hold bitterness in our heart, it will like defile everything around us, and how that plays it. And like, I'm listening to it and I'm just like crying. I'm crying right
Mhm.
now remembering it, because I was like, I am bitter. Like, I am bitter. Like, this is, and one of the things he says is like, bitterness is unfulfilled revenge. And I was like, oh yes. Like, I want to get this person back, like, screw you
Mhm.
kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so like I felt that to my core, and I was like, yes, this is it. And then, it's YouTube. So it like auto populates the next video, right? Totally like divinely orchestrated. The next video is called The Courtrooms of Heaven. And I was like,
Mm.
I am in the middle of this process in the court, and with this judge, and I'm waiting for a judgment. There's a courtroom of heaven. What's this about? So I go and listen to it. And it's all about talking about how God is the judge, and like, the Satan has accusations against you, and they're true, and they couldn't be brought before the judge if they weren't true, because you can't just say whatever you want. And the only way you can deal with it is by repentance and all this stuff, right? And like, I have a completely different understanding of it now, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is you, God, telling me all the things that I'm holding that are keeping me from what I say I want. I want to be with my kids. I don't want my kids taken away from me. And you're telling me my bitterness is what's going to keep
Mhm.
them away from me. And I was like, so I just like, on my face, crying,
Mhm.
just praying to God, yes, I'm bitter. Yes, I want revenge. Yes, like, you know, I want to kill him. I want this, that, the other, right? All the things that are inside of me, right? Just let it out. And I'm like, take it, please. Take it to
Mhm.
the cross, take it and get rid of it. And like, I felt this such like this release of like all the things that I'd been holding, things that I hadn't been like willing to look at in myself. And it was just that like tiny little sliver of the door open, like now this can come out, right? Because if I can't look at this, at what I'm doing, at what I'm holding, then nothing's going to change because everything that's inside of me is what is around me. I just am usually unconscious of the connection. And so there's like this verse in the Bible that I love and it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so it is. And like I understand that as like as I think in my heart, whether I'm conscious of what I'm thinking or not, so the world around me is like that plays out outside of me like a projector. And
Mhm.
so the things that I was seeing, like I'm powerless, I'm a victim, I have no power here, blah, 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 all those things were because of what I was holding inside. And
Mm.
so as I changed that internal picture, the external picture changes too. So I have this huge like outpouring prayer session. I'm like, you're right. I'm bitter. I let go of all of this. And I feel such a release. And then on Monday, the judge is like, Maria, you get custody of the kids as long as you come back to Montana. And I was like, this works. Like, oh my gosh, I do have power, but it's not like for me to like make you do something. It's for me to change the way that I'm doing things, the way that I'm looking at things, the way that I'm like embodying whatever I'm embodying, whether it's bitterness or forgiveness or, you know, joy or whatever it is. So like, so that was kind of like a super pivotal point for me to begin to see like just how much responsibility and power we do have and how it's not external, it's internal. So, like, that
Mhm.
was life changing for me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm so glad you ended up sharing this story.
Mhm.
I'll never forget it the first time I heard it and how incredible it is to w- hear how you took that situation to a place of actually wanting for yourself, and then
Mhm.
I'm sure in turn it like greatly affects your children and
Mhm.
him, of that healing within you, so that you know the way, at least the way I experience this within myself in my life with completely different situations but have similar roots, is I hate the way it feels to live
Mhm.
in that state of like resentment, bitterness. But
Yep.
what I can say is at some level we clearly like it, you know, like
Yeah,
there's
because we keep
obviously,
choosing it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
obviously that aspect of like the human addiction to pain and suffering, and
Yeah.
but the thing is, what it takes for a woman to actually like claim and live and
Mhm.
be in that level of power and responsibility. I think a lot of people would call it comes with like humility. I don't know if I would say humility is necessarily the right word. I think it's more like um it's like the willingness to choose to not need to be right, the willingness to
Mhm.
choose to like die to this idea that like I had it planned out
Yes.
perfectly and I knew how it was gonna, it's like it's all the, to me it's like a lot of death that happens
Yes.
in that
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um so I what I love about hearing in that experience is how now when I speak to you, you kind of have this continual trek of knowing how to go back into that place
Yes.
of, I don't know what you call it, like mm, almost like meeting with the judge again.
Yes, I do. I do. I
Yeah.
actually like live from this place now. Um so that kind of like opened up me to this like season of it's going to sound really bad, but this season of judgment, like where I like, because we've always heard like in Christian circles, you know this, like we hear about God as savior, we hear about God as father.
Hmm.
You know, we don't talk about God as judge. It's kind of like a kind of
Yeah.
topic, you know, like um
Well, and
and
I would even say like in the more new age-ish, it's like judgment is bad.
yeah,
Like you
yes,
don't judge. And so it's rare you hear judgment being used in like a
a
rightful.
positive.
I think
Yeah.
you might have been the first time that I actually was
Mhm.
able to reinterpret what that meant. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we got here.
Yeah. It's kind of funny we did get here because I kind of have had this topic on my heart anyway, and I was gonna make a video about it, but so here we
Oh,
are.
here we are.
Um,
I'll make a little snippet of this portion for
yeah.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, I went through this season of, like, of judgment. That's, like, I was going in, like, in my heart to before, like, God as a judge and telling him, like, judge me. Well, like, what's here that I'm not seeing? Realign me to like what the truth is and like who I really am and all this kind of stuff. And this is the same period in time like where I'm going through this like religious deconstruction, and he's just like taking apart my theology of like here's all the ideas that are true, and like all of that's getting taken apart. And so I'm like, I just want to go back to the source. Like, what's the origin of this? I want to go back to like the beginning. And so I started like teaching myself Hebrew because that's what the Old Testament's written in. And I fell in love with that language because originally it was pictographic. So each of the letters has like a picture that goes with it. They all were numeric too. So like each of the letters was also a number. So they have like like numerical value. So like the math teacher in me is like, and
Yeah.
so like, but there's like you can start to see meanings of the word. And so the word judge, Dan, is Dalit and Nun, those two letters. And Dalit is a door, and Nun is a seed, like life, a seed of life. And so it's like judgment is supposed to be a door to life. And
Mm.
even when you use it in a way that is like kind of imbued with shadow or like with like the more unconscious side of things, when we're judging people, like we are giving life to that because of what we are speaking about it or saying about it or whatever. And in the like righteous aspect or the aligned aspect of it, it's supposed to like bring you back to life, to bring you back to truth, to bring you back to who you really are. And so the more I went before God as judge and was like, judge me, the more I was like crying that because I was remembering who I was. Like, I'm not a victim. Like, I am one with God. Like, all that is, like, how could I ever be a victim? I'm not a
Mhm.
victim. I made this to make myself feel small because this is the pattern that I'm used to that has been going on in my family and his family forever, but that's not who I am, you know?
Mhm.
And so, like, that season just opened all of this up. And so now, like, I still kinda live from this place of, like, if I call them accusations, but, like, if an accusation comes at me, like, "You're so blah, 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 blah," I take it and I'm like, "Judge me. Is this true?
Mm.
Is this true? Is it somebody else's projection? Because that's there too." Um, but most of the time I find if it's in my field, if it's in my awareness, if it's coming to me through a conversation, a message, whatever, it's mine. It's just unconsciously mine. And it's in front of me so that I can see it and adjust it and change what I don't like anymore.
So
So,
can you, because
yeah.
I think about this a lot, is like the difference between when it's unconsciously mind versus the projection, and what your experience has been of really being able to tell the difference.
Mhm. So, first for me, especially I feel like as women, like I can feel it in my body. I know enough now to know like that one hurts because it's actually my own belief about myself. That
Right.
one hurts, you know. And when
Yeah.
it's somebody else's, it's almost like it just kind of slides right off you. Like you
Mm,
hear it, but you don't take it in. If that makes sense? Like when there's a
absolutely.
taking in of it, it's already there inside of you. And
Right.
so there's another like proverb from the Bible, and I've always loved this one. It says, like a flitting sparrow, a curse without a cause does not alight.
Mm,
So how I understand it is just like a bird will like fly around but not land on a branch. If it's not in you, it can't touch you. But if it's
for
in you
sure.
and it touches you, that's yours. So this is
Yeah.
why like this has enabled me to like just take like extreme responsibility for my field. If it's here, it's mine to deal with. And
Yeah.
if I look at it that way as this is my domain, like, I love how I don't know if you follow Eli Marcus on Facebook. I just love him, but secure the throne. Like, this is in your
Yeah,
field. Like, take care of it. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, and so this is kind of how I look at it. So if it's mine, if it's here in my face, it's mine to deal with. And
Yeah.
so instead of me, and I used to just like push against it all the time, which just creates more resistance because you're fighting the mirror. It's not out
Mm.
here you need to fight, it's in here. And so now I just have this posture of like, okay, well, this is here in my field. I'm going in and I go inside and I go, sometimes I still go before the judge, but sometimes it's just like, what's here that needs to be witnessed? What's here that needs to be seen? What's the story that I'm telling myself here? Oh, yeah, I started to tell this story again. That's why I'm seeing this pattern again. Got it. So it's really been such like a pivotal framework for me of like how to see life and approach life and deal responsibly with what's here. So,
Yeah. Something I'd be curious too is that because I love the mirror piece and how you said, like, if I'm fighting the mirror, it's just an endless fight. The fighting
yeah,
the mirror is one to never
yeah,
be won.
yes.
Oh gosh, I've done it. I've done it. And,
We
and
all
it's,
have, like
yeah.
shadow boxing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a great way to put it. I think one of my old mentors, she used to say like, um, it could be something as simple as someone telling me like, no, your name's not Courtney, your name is actually Abby. And I'd be
Mhm,
like, that's really weird. Like, it's
mhm.
not my name. That's not my parents named me at birth, but okay. Like, it wouldn't really bother me if someone was like
Right.
super convinced that that was my name. I'd be like, all right, like, sure, like, you say whatever, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't hurt me.
No.
Um, and yeah, so having that difference, like it's very true that if it stings, okay,
Yeah.
there's something in here. So, but something that I feel like could be important to touch on is when you go into that place of let's say like inner reflection of
Mhm.
unveiling that, how have you been able to do that without okay, and I'm obviously only saying this because of my own experience with it, of going in there and not getting caught up in the battle of it, wanting to stay alive by creating like greater, like more negative judgments, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I find that it can be easy to have something like that revealed and then utilizing it against ourselves as like a
Yep.
stronger case of like why it's true. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it will, because I mean, it's ego, right? So, like,
Yeah.
ego is always gonna try to stay alive. So it's like, um, "I'm not good enough." Of course you're not. Look at you. You've done it again. You made another situation and you're fighting the mirror again. Look at you. You're just not good enough ever. Like,
Yeah.
and I laugh about it, but, like, there's times where, like, that story that we tell ourselves will bring us to our knees, right? And
Hmm.
so, like, for me, in that journey, like, I found that there was this, like, cyclical kind of coming back to things, and then people tend to think like, "Oh, this issue's coming up again. I've never really healed it." But that's not really true. It's more like we go around, we touch it, we go around, we go a little bit deeper, we touch it again, we go around, we go deeper yet again and touch it again. And so we're going to touch it from all these different aspects until like it is full bodied, full dimensional, completely grounded all the way through to the core of our being till we completely
Mm.
embody that state of beingness. So like um example, like my story used to be like I'm powerless. I am weak, I'm a victim, I'm powerless. I have no power. And that's all I would see. Like anything I tried to do in the court system couldn't get anywhere. Anywhere I tried to like fix my money couldn't get anywhere. Anywhere I tried to make my ex do what I want him to couldn't get anywhere. You're powerless. The story's true, right?
Right.
But
Right.
as soon as I learned that my power is not outside of me, that it's inside of me, I could go inside. And then it's like, well, my ex is over here sending me this email with all these accusations. I can not respond to him, go inside, take these, deal with them in myself, take my power back, up, reground myself, recenter myself. And now I've just stepped into my power. I'm not powerless. Maybe I don't have an external thing I can do, but there's always an internal thing that I can do. I can
Mhm.
always shift my perspective. I can always ask for another way of looking at things, right? And so So, like, I would take that, and then he wouldn't bother me anymore, and then I would have a boss who was controlling. Here we go around the mountain again, right? Like the cycle. And now, how do you respond to this one? Take this inside, again, go down, again, like deal with this from another angle. And then, maybe it shows up here like this. Then I start to see all the places where I have been the controller. I wasn't the
Mm.
victim. I was controlling things. I'm just like all these people that I'm like, no, I'm not like you. Right.
Yeah.
And then you deal with that. And so it's like, even though I think to me, it's like the wisdom and beauty of the design of being human. Like, these
Mhm.
things come up again and again and again, not to be like, "You suck, you didn't deal with it." It's more like, here's another chance to peel back another layer and another chance to peel back another layer until you're at the core with nothing extra on top. And then
Mhm.
now nothing can touch you there. So now when
Yeah.
someone, like, tries to control me, I have no reaction. I feel nothing. Nothing. Like, I'm like, "Oh, this is my golden bubble, my field. I'm sovereign. You can't touch me here, but
Yeah.
have a great day." And
I
actually,
love
it ends up
that.
being more like I feel a deep sense of compassion for them. I know you're
Oh,
scared, that's why you're
yes.
trying to control me. That's okay. Come
Yes.
this way, you know?
That's a beautiful way of really
Yeah.
knowing where you
Yes.
are with it, and it's almost like what I'm hearing and what you're sharing is, like, how we're going to experience that inner reflection is, like, who we're entering in there with. Are we entering in
Mhm,
with the compassionate, loving, nurturing, mothering self, or
mhm,
are we entering into it with, like, the defensive,
mhm,
reactive,
mhm,
angry, willing to
mhm.
fight? And the other thing I'm thinking about as you're sharing is, like, I realize for me, for the most part, if because most of these things they're being brought to light in the external world,
Yeah.
interactions we're having with other people or maybe animals or whatever we're fighting with.
Yeah.
Um, I generally need to step away from the situation, and, like, I have to give it space
Mhm.
in order for me to be able to go into that place
Yes.
with that loving, compassionate, nurturing, because if I'm doing it in the midst of that moment where, like, the fire is hot, it's hard to see
Yeah.
it with clarity, and sometimes it takes me a day or 2 before I'm, like, um, grounded enough to really be able to witness that from a different lens, which is
Yep.
commonly my prayers. Like, I wanna see this with different eyes than I'm seeing it
Mhm.
in the moment where, like,
Mhm.
what I'm thinking and seeing right now has to be true, and yeah,
You're
yeah,
right, right? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well,
yeah.
and it's like you get into these habituated patterns of, like, seeing things, and it takes practice to build a new one. Like, you're
Mhm.
literally building new neural pathways in your brain, like the biology
Right.
of it, right? You're literally reconnecting different things. So it's like the more we can make a practice of it, the more we can use that way of looking at things or talking about that thing to ourselves, the more it gets grounded physically into our bodies, and then
Mhm.
it's easier for us to live from that state instead of the old one where it was like all drama and everything else. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It definitely takes, like, that repetition and creating a new level of, um, normalcy.
yeah.
And so maybe we can segue that into, a little bit of a more hot topic in that regard of, kind of how I say, like, a woman has far more power than she
Mhm.
often wants to be responsible for. And
Mhm.
when I think of that, what I really think about is what we bring into a room energetically,
Yeah.
how we are maneuvering our home energetically, and what
Mhm.
we are allowing to come through um, our men, like the men we're partnered to, husbands, boyfriends, etc.
Yeah.
Um, so I I would love to hear you touch, Maria, on what your experience has been of, like, well, um, being involved from a more energetic place of
Mhm.
your own desire
Yeah.
and letting God work through the men in your life, but doing that, like, with your own posture of responsibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it totally does. So I know you know this, but like I feel like it's really common in the like feminine masculine discussion for it to be like men lead and women follow, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so like a lot of times like on the physical aspect it looks like him going out and doing things. And so for women though, for me as a woman, like I have found that like what I do energetically in my home changes everything. So in the same way, like, you know, I prayed that prayer to like let go of my bitterness and all of that, and that shifted things for me. In the same way, like in my home, I kind of see myself as like a priestess. Like this is my domain, this is my temple, this is my altar space, and what I do here or what I offer here will impact everybody within this space. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, and I like, I'll see it play out like from day to day. Like, one of my kids will like have a meltdown. And I'm like, that story connects to this story of what I was telling myself the other day. Sorry, babes.
That's so funny. Oh yeah,
And
for
I'm like, "Ah,
sure.
sorry, tweak the energy back to normal." You know, like so, and it's the same thing, like you know, like with your man, with your husband or your partner or your boyfriend, however, whatever term you use, you know, like
Yeah.
so like there's what he does and brings home, but it's also how that impacts you and how you want
Mm-hmm.
to feel within the dynamic of your home and the dynamic of your relationship. And so like I have the absolute ability to close myself off to him and not receive anything that he's giving me, to not receive
Mm-hmm.
anything that life is giving me through him.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the responsibility is with me then to like to be open to what I say that I want. And so like I can we've had like Chad and I have had this conversation a number of times. Like, have you ever noticed how a man will be with a woman and he'll be a certain kind of man with her, and then they break up and he gets with another woman and he's a completely different person? Why?
Mm.
Because of how she animates the field around them, how she brings life into that dynamic and his framework. Like that potential in him always existed. It's just she brings a different energy to that framework that he holds. And
Oh, I love
so
that.
yeah, and so I think about this all the time because if you were to talk to his ex-wife, she would say all the things that I said about my ex. He's a narcissist, he's abusive, he's and I'm like, he's wonderful, he adores me, he's devoted, he's so amazing, you know, like how can it be so
Yeah.
night and day different? Because of the woman, because of how she holds her atmosphere, her home, what energy she brings, what she's open to, what she's closed to. So like I take extreme responsibility for that, and I've seen how quick it like turns around when just a simple thing of me changing my energy.
What
So
can that look like at times of you changing your energy?
so I'll give you a great this happened just the other week. Um so I have been dealing in myself with like these patterns of like over like doing too much around the house, not
Mhm.
inviting my family to work with me because like that's ultimately like what I want. I want like the synergy of us all working together, keep taking care of the home, taking care of each other like that, instead of me being like, "Ah," you know. So
Yeah.
this is what it's like with kids sometimes, right? And so like I want this like buy-in, I want this thing, but I've been doing too much because I'm like, I don't do it, nobody will. Like that's the story I have, right? And so then you get
Mhm.
resentful, and then it's like you didn't do it right.
Yeah, I would have done it better if I would have just done it all. It would have happened
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
the way
And
I wanted
so
it.
so like I've been dealing with this pattern like in my thinking and in my story. And so I was sitting here at the table the other day and my son's like playing a video game and he's so like angry and like out of control and he's like raging at the video game. He's like, "Bleh." And like we have conversations about this all the time, him and I, like about self-control. And if it's not fun, don't play. And like, you know, like
Yeah.
you can't just be a raging asshole all the time. And so, and he's just like, and so like I'm sitting there and I'd had this conversation like with God earlier. And I was just like, what am I not seeing? Like, I know I'm making this pattern. Like, even though it feels like everybody outside of me is doing it because they're not helping with the chores and they're raging at the video games and all of this. But I know that, like, at the core of it, it's me. And all of a sudden, I could just feel like how I had no boundaries whatsoever. Like, I was just and like everything, I was taking everything into myself, all of his rage, all of the response, all of the everything. It was
Mm.
all me. And I was like, even though I love these people and they're my family, I am also separate and sovereign. And so it's my responsibility to hold my field, my bubble, my throne, so to speak. And so it's just like it was just really simple. I sat there, I closed my eyes, even while he was raging in the background, breathed in slowly, pulled that energy back up through my feet to my crown, set my bubble around me. And he
Mm.
was like, "You know what? I'm getting off the video games." Turned it off and went and did something else. And I was like, "Did I just
Oh,
do that? Yes, I did."
that's
And
incredible.
so it's just like it was a really good reminder to me, like, um, it is my responsibility to emanate what I want and not absorb and just take everything. I don't need to take it because whatever I take, I'm going to multiply. That's what the feminine does. She takes it in, she multiplies it, she sends it out. And so it's like, well, if I'm not clean and clear on what I will and won't take in, then I'm just going to multiply all the crap that comes at me. And
Yeah.
so I was like, it is my job to filter, to discern, to hold that like golden bubble of this can come in, this cannot, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was just such like I know this, and it was another layer of like, practice it another way, Maria. Okay.
Yeah, it is a practice. It is
Yeah.
like that's the thing about all the spiritual, it's not getting caught up in the theology and
Mhm.
the wording. It's like the actual practice of it.
Yeah.
And two things. One that I really loved is when you went into just that moment of visualizing and going through your feet into your crown.
Mhm.
You didn't do that with like, I'm doing this so that my son gets the F off of
Yes.
this video game, even though they'll stop, like, but you didn't do it with that
No, I
intention.
didn't.
And I
Nope.
think that's such an important part of all of this is like, I'm not, because I'm speaking at this. I fear sometimes I speak at these things in a way where it might come across as though I'm saying like, oh, we do these things to change people around us, but that might
No.
be an affect, but it's not the purpose. Like it's
Mhm.
always for our own state of being,
Yes.
which is why I was speaking to like the one thing I have to always come back to when I'm outsourcing my responsibility is how shitty it
Mhm.
actually feels. Is
It
like
does. Yeah.
the feeling of sitting in victimization, although it can be an addictive state, like it feels awful. Like it's
Mhm.
not a place I want to live.
Yeah.
And oh, there was another place I was going with that, but um oh, the borders and the boundaries. It's funny
Mhm.
that you bring it to that point because we hear so much about like the feminine being seated and she's
Mhm.
the receiver,
Mhm.
so that she can multiply. And I think this is such a simple yet
Yeah.
profound way to practice this as like a, yeah, it really kind of is that
Yeah.
secure the throne, as you
Yeah.
mentioned from Eli, is like, how can I keep this throne clean and not, we don't have to intake all that
Everything.
is happening around us, and
Yeah.
almost like having a really high responsibility with what we will very purposefully and intentionally choose to take in and receive because we know that it's for
Yes.
us, versus like, I'm going to keep this clean and clear. And even with the family and the people closest to me,
Mhm.
you're going to get to have that experience over there kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And I love what you said about, like, it's not for the intention of, like, making something happen. Like, my goal was never to, like, make my son stop raging at his video game. My
Yeah.
goal was for myself. Like, it's to
Yeah.
give back to myself. It's for me to, like, embody that place of that state of well-being, that state of, like, peace and serenity and sovereignty of, like, even if everything around me is blowing up, I am still serene, still sovereign, still in control of my little bubble, even if that's just the 2 feet around me, you know?
Yeah.
And when you can embody that state, though, that like mind body state, it does shift things around you. Like that's a natural outcome. But if you're only going to try to embody that state in order to get an outcome, you're not actually in that state. You're in the state of control, which is
Control.
all
Yeah.
ego, and it's not gonna, it has no life. It's gonna like reap no reward other than like more of the same of what you've been experiencing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. I Did you ever listen in when we did the Lindworm story in
Yes, yes.
so I always come back to this in discussing like not doing it for um the other person because the common thing in our feminine masculine teaching is that it can often look like the way the women are choosing to inhabit themselves like for men kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
remembered when we were doing that story and Camille,
Mhm.
I love Camille. She was just like, oh my, like she was deepening into the story in a way that was really powerful. And something she really pinpointed on was, and I can't remember the whole Lindworm story, but like this woman who chose this life with this lindworm beyond everything we could see in the story, like she did this for her life. Like
Mhm.
she had to choose this
Mhm.
because she knew in her heart of hearts, like in her gnosis, like this
Yeah.
was her path and she had to do this. And every time I consider that, I'm like, what an incredible level of spiritual responsibility to
Yeah.
say, no matter what happens in the physical around me, like I'm doing this because this is
Mhm.
the path God gave. And that's a much, a little bit more like grander example than like our
Right.
day to day, like with the children and our
Yeah.
partners of,
Yeah.
how to practice it. But to me, that is like the bigger picture of it all that we are on a day to day practicing of
Yeah.
is this is actually for me and for my
Yeah.
life and whatever I've came here to earth to complete and to maybe
Yeah.
not complete, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And it's
relate.
like, so the way that I've kind of anchored it for myself is like there's like these concentric circles that like go out, and you can't have so there's this is another Bible verse. I think it's from Proverbs, and it's like greater is the man that rules his own soul than a man who can rule a city. Meaning, if you can conquer a city, but you don't have control of yourself, you're out of order, you're out of line. And so it's like, first you deal with yourself, then you deal with what's
Mm.
in your immediate field, which is like, our husbands, our kids, our, immediate family of who's here. Then it's like, and what comes next? Your job, your people you meet in your community, your groups that you participate in. Then you go out from there, and maybe it's your state or your country, or and it just gets wider and wider circles of like authority is how, like, we talked about it in Christian circles, like, this is my spiritual authority. I'm
Yeah,
apostle.
yes.
No, I'm just kidding. you know you
Oh
know
my goodness.
but
Totally.
like, so I can't presume to have any kind of authority or responsibility for my city, my state, my nation if I don't take responsibility for myself. And so, like, for me, it always came back to that, like, I'm doing this for myself. Why? Because if I'm in alignment with the truth, with love, with the plumb line that I've chosen for myself, if I'm in alignment with that, then everything else will fall into order too. And it will go out from
Mhm.
there, from me to my family, to my community, to my city, to my state, to my nation, to the world. And
Yeah.
so, like, this is where I think power comes from. The power is not in like trying to control the people on the chessboard out here. It's in like moving the chess pieces inside of here. And ultimately that serves me. Like, I do it. Originally I did it because I was like, I need to feel better, like, that's why I would give
Yeah.
up. Please God, judge me. This makes me feel better when I get rid of this junk that's inside of my heart, right? And then it became like, I'm doing this for me because I love myself. I deserve to know, like, the version of myself who is powerful and wonderful and wise and creational and like all of the things. And so it becomes this aspect of like self devotion as you step into these places. And like from there, oh my gosh, like there's so much that opens up, right? And it's like the more you grow in it and the more you sit in it, the more you're like, let me expand into the next level of this, into the next level of this, until it's like I can look at this in the
Mhm.
news and be like, oh, I see that in me. Let me love that too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see that in me. Let me love that too. Goodness, I wonder how much brighter the world could be
Mhm.
in our visuals if I mean, for everyone, but I think in more particular, what I'm just speaking to right now, if women were willing to meet our desires from that place
Mhm.
rather than from like, yeah, life owes me something and I'm bitter
Yeah.
because I haven't had it yet.
Yeah.
And there's layers to that unraveling, um and I really think even in particular with how we go about teaching and receiving, when it comes to relational feminine and masculine dynamics, is
Mhm.
like there's such a great level of importance in knowing our place and our responsibility. And
Mhm.
that was a really beautiful visual of the what did they call the circles?
Concentric circles. It's like a
Concentric
circle inside
yeah,
a
yeah,
circle.
yeah.
Yeah. Like the ripples in a pond. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Mhm.
just really is how this is all um occurring. And even just I mean, oh my gosh, I mean, this could be applied into so many different, realms of life right now,
Right.
and all that's going on. But starting in that, inner circle, there's like that circle right there. It is there's so much power, and to think of how that then creates a ripple effect where we don't
Mhm.
have to be near as hands-on, which is far more, I mean, like, not to say we're not action oriented, but like
Right.
hands-on in the controlling way of trying
Yes.
to create a certain
Yeah.
outcome by way of other people,
Yep.
like not honoring their sovereignty.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
And that is just so like I learned this lesson over and over again, but like every time I try to like be the striver and do something to make me move towards my goal, like I just, I'm trying to do it. I mean block after block after block. And it's that back to that old story of like, you're powerless. Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I just have to go inside and I forgot I need to do And when I come
Right.
back to that place of like my powers inside of me, how I look at things matters, the story I'm telling myself here matters. When I come back to that place, then the aligned action that like moves things forward, that like presents itself like this like glowing path, like, ah, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's so easy. And it's like, duh, why did I forget? I don't know. I'm human. We'll try again, but
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. That
There's grace for
lightness.
sure.
That
Yeah.
lightness of the way you said it is
Yeah.
just, oh,
Yeah.
love that.
Yes.
And it's funny that you go to that place of the striving, because it totally reminds me of another discussion that had been happening in Devoted of like
Hmm.
operating from yin versus operating from a place of striving. And
Yeah.
the Kyle Case video you sent, which totally changed my
Yes. So
life,
good. I
of
love
you well, you brought it forward in a way of you could be like Maria the striver,
it. Hmm.
um, or you could eh, I don't remember what I don't remember if there was an alternative or what, but the
Hmm.
question kind of became, what am I?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
operating from, yeah. So would love to hear you touch a little bit on that too, because it's funny how that powerlessness can
Hmm.
then have so many different like trek lines. Because
Yep.
when we were speaking about like the I am powerless, I am victim, I don't think most of us are like going around consciously thinking,
No.
oh,
Oops, hold on one second.
you're good, I'll pause. um but yeah, what I was saying was like, I don't remember consciously thinking like I am powerless, I am a victim. I
Mhm.
can just see, though, I can more see how the thought patterns are being bridged from
Yeah.
that being a deeper truth. Because
Yep.
and I say that because oftentimes when what I witness and observe totally in myself and in others of
Mhm.
this unraveling happening is, who tell someone that, they're like, no, like, I don't think, then you get the little bit
Right?
of defensiveness, which says a lot. But it's like, no,
Right?
I don't think I'm powerless. I don't think I'm a victim. But it's like, well, maybe we're not walking around thinking those thoughts and like labeling
Mhm.
ourselves that way, but there's a lot of actions, habits, and thoughts
Yeah.
that are leading to that. But I just say that because it's really funny how um, those deep-seated, rooted
Mhm.
ideas
Mhm.
then like they create all these funny
Funny little
lines.
offshoots. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
striving. Oh, do I know that one so well?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is what I found like in myself and like in others that I've coached and worked with, but like there's always like the surface level thing. And you're never going to hear, I am powerless. I am victim. I am not good enough. I am blah, blah, blah. You don't really hear those at the surface level. But like as you kind of like let yourself sift through this and get down to the bottom, you'll start to like see a theme in the stories of what's happening. So it'll be like, this always happens to me. I can never get
Hmm.
justice. Somebody else is always bigger and stronger than me, blah, 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 blah. Like you'll hear the story. And underneath all of that is the I am statement. I am victim. I am powerless. I am whatever, fill in the blank. And so, and this is true like with good things too. Like, I can take action. I can go inward. I can do these things. I am powerful. Like it's just whatever
Hmm.
state you're embodying. And so, like, you'll see these like offshoots are these like the fruit on the tree, so to speak, of what's at the root of it, like what's at the core of it. Either
Right.
I am powerless or I am powerful. So it's one or the other. There's like no in between. So so getting to that is like there's always something like really it takes a little bit of digging or like willingness to like look at that, like to be able to look at that without like cringing at yourself, you know? And so
Hmm.
I loved Kyle Cease's teaching on that "What am I?"
Oh,
'Cause
I
he
said it wrong. Kyle Cease. I
Kyle
said
Cease,
Kyle
yes.
Case. Okay. Thank you.
He had these like 4 levels of like ego, and the first one's like, "I can't. I can't do this. I can't get what I want. I can't blah, blah, blah. I can't." And the second level is the striver. Like, "I'm going to make this happen. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fix, fix, fix. I'm gonna strive, and then blah, blah, blah." And you're gonna find you're not gonna get anywhere with that either. And so then you might circle back to, "I can't get anything done." Or you might move into the next level, which is like, "I want this thing, but I'm still separate from it."
Hmm.
And there's still this like separation or this division between me and my desire, right? And the fourth level is, what am I? I am that thing. Like I'm just not connecting the awareness that I am that thing. So like when I'm in pain and I'm not feeling well and I'm like I'm sick, I have an illness, I have chronic pain, I have blah blah blah, you know, then I'm taking on that identity. This always hurts. I can never find anything that works. Blah blah blah. Like this is my own story I'm dealing with right now. And so it's
Yeah.
like, but when you stop and you circumvent that whole narrative and you say, "What am I?" and you actually like drop into this moment, like I am life itself. Like I am that life force. I can feel it buzzing through my body. I can feel every single trillion of my cells that are all working for my good, that are all bringing me life and goodness and well-being. Like none of them are trying to kill me. Like they're all working for my good, right? And so when I ask myself, what am I? Now I'm no longer separate from the thing that I say I want. I'm not separate from good health. I am good health. I
Right.
am that state. And I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said, if you have something, you can lose it, but you can never lose something that you are.
Mhm.
So if I
Yes.
have power, I can lose power. But if I am power, that will never be separate from me because that's what I am.
Oh, I love that so
I
much.
know,
Oh,
right? It's such a good
oh,
reminder. Like I forget and then I remember again. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I love knowing this.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. The idea that we obtain it, like and that in of itself is that it's something outside of me is like,
Mhm.
and it also keeps that belief alive that I have to keep
Yep.
working to have it, to achieve it. Like it's
Mhm.
this constant hamster wheel of
Yep.
getting to something that I am not. And I love that you said somewhere in there within that it's like it's a being state. It's when
Yes.
it is who I am, um, there is nothing to go get. And of course, that doesn't mean we don't have this action oriented life, but it feels and looks
Mhm.
and we experience it so differently from that sense of like, I get to operate from that place of wholeness and um I'm following in that like lineage of
Mhm.
knowing that I am not separate. And that's another one of my many favorite teachings of yours, Maria,
Mhm.
is the
Yeah.
I am not separate from my desire, and
Yes.
kind of how wanting is the separation piece. Like wanting
Yeah.
is where it is outside of me and I have to do something to prove that I'm worthy of it. But at the core root of desire, it's like I am the essence that I am telling myself I need to go find a way to get.
Yeah.
But if I am that essence, it would be impossible for me to go get it. And I
Yeah.
think even especially true for women, being that we are, you know, creating and shifting atmospheres
Mhm.
energetically and
Mhm.
spiritually. Yeah.
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 So this like being states, like I learned this from Neville Goddard. If you haven't ever listened to his sermons or his teachings or read his books, freaking amazing
Yes.
mystic.
He has like there's a big one that has like a
Yeah.
bunch of his books and ones. I highly
Yes.
recommend that one. It's so good.
Yes, I love it. And he talks about these states of being, and like you move occupy the state of your wish fulfilled. So if you were like, let's say you want to be married. If you were married, how would you feel? What would you do? How would you act? And so like to put yourself into that state. If I am that state, if I am the state of being married, then what does that feel like, look like, move like, taste like, all of that. And so I love that as a way to like anchor this into myself of like when I am deliberately creating, because we're always creating whether we recognize it or not. Sometimes we look at our creation, we're like, you suck.
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
did I make that? Oh yeah, I forgot for a second who I am.
Right.
But we're always creating. But when I want to deliberately create something, which like, in the woo-woo circles, we call it manifesting and all that kind of stuff. When I want to
Hmm.
deliberately create something, I just have to become the thing that I want. And it comes to me like I am love, I am chosen, I am joy, I am adored, I'm whatever, I'm abundant, I'm rich, I'm healthy, I'm wise, I'm all these things. And so when I am that thing, then it's like a magnet, like drawn to its partner. Like it can't the non-physical to the physical. And so there's I'm gonna give another Bible. I love Bible verses. They're so great. There's all these like little pithy pieces of wisdom. But
Hmm.
um there is this Bible verse that's kind of like, oh, I have to remember it now. What is it? It goes, um, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and he will give you trust in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. That's what it
Hmm.
says. And it kind
Hmm.
of is like in modern Christianity, we understand it of like, um, do what God says, be a good girl, be obedient, and he'll give you what you want.
Hmm.
He'll give you a cookie, right? And
Yeah.
that's how like a lot of Christians have taken. That's how I used to take it. And when I again like started to dig into the Hebrew, it's more like entangle yourself in God. And then the word for
Mm.
like he will give, it's not like he's giving, it's like he puts it, it's already there. He put that there. So the
Oh.
way I began to understand it and the way like God began to unpack it for me was like, I don't desire something because it's missing from my life. I desire something. I begin to feel when I have enough clarity to say, I want X, that's because it's already on the other side in the non-physical, wanting to come to me, wanting to come through me. And so like when I make myself available to this desire, I'm just answering the echo. I'm answering the call. Like, who wants to
Hmm.
be X? Me. I feel this. I want to be this. And then it's like an invitation to like let go of the ego, the clothes. I could look at ego like a cloak you wear. Let go of the
Mm.
story that I'm single or unloved or rejected, so that I can put on whatever it is that I'm wanting, to be loved, to be chosen, to be adored, all of that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so it changes the relationship to your desire, because now it's not something that I have, it's something that wants me already. It
Yeah.
already wants me and I want
Mhm.
it. So it's like there's nothing in the way. It's just the non-physical aspect versus me as the physical. It's me allowing my consciousness and my awareness to expand enough to like embody that state in my body so that it can come through me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The rewiring of these Bible verses to
Yes.
their Hebrew origin is a whole entire nervous system
Yep.
resetting and like relaxing.
Mhm.
I have so not gotten to your level, Maria, of breaking the Hebrew down, but um, oh, every time I hear you speak a verse and then give that, I'm like,
Mhm.
wow,
Mhm.
the entwining and knowing that it was already put there, it's such a relaxed state of
Yeah.
being.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and it's almost like frightening sometimes to my mind to think about, could it really be okay to
Uh-huh.
live in this chaotic world from like this really relaxed state of being where like
Yeah.
what everything that needs to get done. Um,
Yeah.
and and it does,
Yep.
and and even more so it does from the energetic place that it actually
Yeah.
is looking towards. One of my friends, I quote this often. She said this a long time ago. It was something like, you can't crave a peach if you've never tasted a peach before.
Mm.
And she was kind of like, and creating an analogy for like, we don't have these desires just far out of left field. Like it
Yeah.
is already a part of us for a
Yes.
reason. And so that entwining is that restful state of just literally remembering, like, this was
Mhm.
actually embedded in me before I entered this planet, before I
Yep.
entered my mother's womb. It was just
Yep.
embedded in me. And if we really knew that, we wouldn't have to believe it. We wouldn't have to do something to go find it. It would
Yep.
just be a part of this.
Just no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it's Dr. David Hawkins that says like knowing doesn't require belief.
That's
And if
correct.
we
Yeah.
needed to believe, if we have to believe in something, that means we don't know it. And I feel like that could be
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
other rabbit hole of a conversation as it pertains to religion and all the things. But
It's kinda like, there's that Abraham Hicks saying, and Abraham says, um, "If you knew it was for sure, wouldn't you have more fun along the way?"
oh
It's for sure. You
yeah,
you can know that. It's already for sure. So I think about this a lot, like, if I already knew that this was for sure, this thing that I want, like, wouldn't I just, like, you just the relief, right? Like, you know it's coming no matter what. It's okay. I'm great.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Oh, wouldn't you have more fun along?
Yeah.
Abraham is one of my favorite to
Yes.
create that lighthearted, like, it's
Yes.
all good. It's all working
Yeah.
out, you know?
Yes, totally.
I so appreciate it. And creating the synchronicities of all the lineages together where it's like,
Mhm.
I don't think Jesus was saying
Nope.
stuff much, like he's saying a lot of the same things in
Right.
different language when we really actually look at the root and the presence. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
I'm very familiar with it all. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's so many more things that I feel like it could go into with you, but maybe we'll save them. And maybe there will have to be, I don't know,
Part
maybe there
2?
will have to be a part two. I'm already feeling it simmering because like
Yeah.
my mind was like, oh my gosh, there's like all these things stirring now of
Yeah. Yeah.
deeper
It's the
topics.
fun
And
of the back and forth and the, like, letting this field be open to, like, whatever wants to be
yeah,
stirred up. It's really
yeah,
it's co-creation.
this was the appetizer for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Because there's totally deeper layers in each of these little threads. And I'm just so appreciative because you are, I always like to look for the people who like, they're living their talk, like they're
Yeah.
walking the walk.
Yeah.
It's evident, it's felt, it's clear. And it's just so fun because it, with you, Maria, it comes with, it does come with that like lightheartedness, but
Yeah.
you can reach all the different depths of the emotional experience. And
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful journey because I learned to take myself so much less serious
Yeah.
being in your presence. And like that is
Oh,
such a gift. So I'm so grateful for
that's
that in
so
you.
awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Actually, and you know what? I didn't ask you this before we hit record and I should have, but Are there places right now that you are, I know you had started your YouTube, but are there
Yeah.
prominent places that you would want people to come to experience you and your teachings and your gifts?
So right now it's just that YouTube channel. I've played around with ideas of like starting a group on Facebook, but then I'm like, do I really want to hold that field right now?
Don't
And I'm
even
like,
have to,
so
yeah.
I'm marinating on that. That may happen at some point, but for now, like I have a YouTube channel. I think there's like 3 videos. I have like 4 or 5 in the works. I just need to sit down and record them.
Well,
So
I'll link the
yeah,
YouTube channel because the
it's
one I
it's the
had.
House of Myrrh on YouTube. It's just a tiny little channel, and it's just like me sharing my thoughts on different things and stories. And I come from that, again, like that Christian Bible stories perspective, but like here's the archetypal truth behind them. Here's another way to look at things, kind of thing. So
Don't dim it down with a tiny little YouTube channel because regardless of tiny
well,
big
maybe it
like
won't be tiny forever, but like right now it's just my little corner of the universe.
yeah, that's all we
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Well, lovely. Thank you so, so much. This is such a gift.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. And yeah, we'll stay tuned for part 2. And
Sounds great.
maybe if anyone watching wants to give input on a particular thread that felt
Yeah.
like would
There's
be
lots of things we can unpack
enjoyable.
from what we
Yeah,
touched. Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
deeper into. I kind of let it all live on the surface a bit. So yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Maria. And we will
Yes.
catch you all in the next discussion. Bye-bye.